So I wanted to make a video today about the complexities of this time that we're living in and the humanity of it, the humanity of each of us. Whoops. I think I might have pulled my mic out. No, I didn't. Yeah, I want to talk about the humanity. Somebody left a comment from me. By the way, we had a tremendous ice storm today, which is crazy. And I decided to just shoot around with my GH5, which I'm shooting with now, which I hardly ever do. But I said, you know what, let me keep it all consistent. You can see some of the ice stuff outside. It's not all that interesting, but I thought it was kind of pretty. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to be in a fantastic location. You don't have to be in epic places to get decent footage and also to practice. There's nothing wrong with practicing. So this is a GH5. I'm using a Mikey 35mm f1.4 lens. I'm shooting at ISO 1600 on this GH5, and I don't know what it looks like yet, but I know it's going to look pretty good. And if it has a little bit of grain or noise to it, I kind of like that. Of course, I'm shooting with my Zoom H1n and my Purple Panda lavalier mic. Haven't been using the Lark Max all that much lately. But I do like the way it sounds. I like this better. I'm just used to it. It's not that it's better. It's just that I've been using it longer. I'm used to it. I'm accustomed to it. It's kind of like a habit. So that has everything to do with what I want to talk about. First of all, when we shoot a headshot like this, you know, like a talking head video, it is really important to get your lights together, I think. I mean, unless you're doing full-blown easy mode, which I'm about to make a video about that. But unless you're absolute, complete 100% easy mode, it's nice to just set up lights. I just have 4 lights set up here. I have a light bulb in that lamp back there, an adjustable light bulb. And I have it set to just white, you know, straight white color. It doesn't even have white balance, you know, Kelvin numbers. So you just pick a color. So I try to pick as neutral as I can because the lampshade is a little bit yellow by itself. So I get like a yellow color. And I'm shooting with my one Neewer and one pixel light. And I have them set to white balance to 5500 because that's what I have the camera set to in the white balance. And I want to match that so I get the skin tone that I'm looking for. And I also have the light back there set to 5500 as well. Now, sometimes I set that to 3200 and I get kind of like that reddish color, which looks kind of cool back there. But today I wanted to keep it all this color because I have enough red maroon in this sweatshirt. And even though I'm going to, you know, make this a dark image when I, you know, put it up on YouTube, so you won't really be able to tell maybe that it's red or maroon. I mean, you'll kind of be able to tell. Anyway, it's important to just, you know, like these lights combined probably cost $120 combined. And it's really, I think, important to work on, you know, shaping light and dealing with levels and learning about, you know, what level your skin tone looks best at with the camera. And why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because it's good to be intentional with what you're doing and with your life in general, I think. I've been extremely reckless much of my life. Today I was cleaning up around here, and I have a bunch of stuff here from my storage space, and I found all these old letters, like handwritten letters, and I'm going through cassettes with, maybe a lot of people watching this don't even know what a cassette is, but it's an old tape that you put music on. And I'm going through all this stuff from my old bands and my old music and my old rehearsals and stuff like that. I'm reading these old letters, and it's just reminding me of where I was years ago. And I I literally did forget about a lot of it. Like, I literally forgot about a whole bunch of stuff, which is interesting because I like where I'm at now. Even though, you know, like I've said many times in my videos, I'm somebody who will never say that I don't have regrets. I have a lot of regrets in my life. But at the same time, I've accomplished so much. I've done a lot. I'm really proud of the work that I do. And most importantly, I like who I am much better now than I liked who I was when I was younger. I think I'm a much nicer person, a much better person. I think I have tons more empathy, which you should, because as you get older, you should acquire more empathy because you have more experience, you've met more people, you've been through different experiences. Like, you should get better instead of worse. And if you just stay where you are, I think you're kind of wasting your time on this earth. And I'm thinking about this because somebody left me a comment the other day, yesterday actually. It was like a direct shot at Kamala Harris. And my knee-jerk reaction was to attack this guy because I happen to think that this entire world right now would be in much better shape if she had won the election. And that's a whole nother conversation for another time, and I'm not going to get into it. And I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. That's cool. That's part of this video. Because then I realized, you know, I went back and I read his comment, and I thought, I think he's coming from a good place. I think he just pointed his attack at somebody, which was a mistake, because I don't think you should take personal attacks at any one person unless they're really, really obviously dictator bad. You know, like they don't care about anybody else's opinion or anything like that. So Kamala Harris didn't even have that kind of power or juice. So to put like the genocide in the Middle East on her is preposterous. It's ridiculous. But I understand where he was coming from because I agree the situation in the Middle East is something that is devastating for me. It keeps me up at night. I know people who grew up in Gaza. So whatever narrative people have about Palestinians or whatever, it's so stupid. But it's the same thing with Israelis, you know, and people tend to put Israelis and all Jews together in the same thing, and it's just ridiculous. And Netanyahu, as if everyone in Israel loves Netanyahu. They don't. And as if every Jew in the world feels like an Israeli. They don't. I'm Jewish. I've never been to Israel. I got no interest in Israel. It doesn't matter to me. Israel might as well be Burkina Faso or Poland or Brazil or whatever to me. I've never been there, and I've really never had any desire to go there. But it doesn't mean I'm ashamed to be Jewish. I'm an American Jew from the Bronx who, you know, spent most of his young life in Spring Valley, New York, who spent most of his life in New York City. So whatever preconceived notions you have of what I might be like or what Jews are like or whatever, I guarantee you, you're wrong. I mean, maybe you're right about certain individual people, but as a whole, whenever anybody describes any whole bunch of people as the same thing, as a monolith, that's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's childish. It's stupid. I'll just say it. So anyway, this guy, I realized, I went back and I read his comment, and I thought, you know what, he's coming from a good place. And actually, he and I have some common ground, even though I know now for a fact that he didn't vote for who I voted for. And I have feelings about that as well, but I'm not here to impose my feelings on him. But what I did do is I answered his comment, and I just told him what I'm telling you now. I don't think it's fair to point it at one person, and I just left it at that, you know, because like I said in my last video, I think the only thing that's going to save this world is love and empathy and listening to one another and talking. I could easily have blocked him. There's another person who's been leaving comments on some of my videos over the last few months that's really annoying me. And I have to say that I disagree with almost every word that this guy has left. But he hasn't crossed the line of disrespect. It's just stuff that I strongly disagree with. And he doesn't realize he's taking shots at me. But again, it's not disrespectful. It's not just absolutely personal. It's kind of veiled. You know what I mean? And a lot of people do that. It's like passive-aggressive kind of stuff. And it's also clueless, you know, like a lot of people have opinions based on their own personal experience. That's all we can have, right? But it's interesting when people have opinions about things that they know nothing about, you know, which is, when it comes to politics, frankly, I feel like that's most of the time. You know, a lot of people love to complain about politics, but they don't really get involved on any level in their communities, locally, in their local schools. They don't even get involved. They don't even go to a community garden. They don't even know where their local library is. Like, they don't know anything, but yet they love to complain about the issues that they read about on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok when they don't really have a clue. They, like, sometimes I think to myself, imagine what it must be like, what you must have to do in this world to become president of the United States or any other major country, like the leader of any major country. Politics everywhere in any developed country have way too much money involved with them, way too much power. And so I think, you know, it's very difficult for people when they get that kind of power and that kind of wealth to remain 100% honest. And in fact, you know, I think the only honest person who I think is 100% honest is maybe somebody like Bernie Sanders. And I'm sure there are a lot more. I think a lot of young politicians get involved with the right idea in mind, and then they get corrupted along the way. Because politics is a game, you know, it's manipulation, it's marketing, it's PR, it's ridiculous. But what's sad about it, it's like people's lives are involved. You know, people die because of politics. People, their lives are ruined because of politics. People have to move. People are displaced. People are separated from their children because of politics. So I think we really have to be careful. But anyway, I just want to say that it's important to be intentional with everything. You know, like right here, I'm using the, you know, the GH5, and I'm shooting with a 35 millimeter lens, but it's a, you know, a micro four thirds camera, so it's really 70 millimeters. So I'm a good 8 feet away from the camera. So I have to be really intentional with my manual focus because I don't have autofocus on this lens, and I don't use autofocus anyway. You know, I had to think about my ISO. I had to make sure my white balance was in order. I had to get all my settings together, shooting at 24 frames per second, you know, making sure I'm using my shutter angle 180 degrees. I know I'm saying things that might sound like Mandarin to certain people. I'm dealing with my lights. I'm getting all my levels together. I'm trying to create a frame that looks appealing and make my sound, you know, make sure the levels are correct. There's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to think about when we engage with one another. You know, I think, like, it would be horrible if I just sat here and just turned on the camera and it would be a horrible image and you couldn't hear me and the lights were all different colors and weird and my skin tone was all screwed up, and you would be like, what the hell? Like, I'm on to the next video. And if I wasn't talking about anything, but everything that I'm doing is intentional, even though when I do YouTube videos, I'm always talking off the top of my head. Like, I have something that I'm talking about. I'm always trying to, you know, kind of incorporate other things in that subject, metaphors, try to incorporate some filmmaking tips and things like that, performance tips, but also talk about what I want to talk about. Because I am a socially and politically active and informed, or trying to be informed person. But like I said, and I think the most important thing I've said in this video is that I like who I am now a lot more than I like who I was in the past. In the past, the guy who left me that comment today, it would have been, I probably would have just blocked him. Well, I would have taken a shot back at him first, and then I would have blocked him. And that would be stupid, and that would be childish of me. That would be ridiculous. Like, there's no good that comes out of that. But what good can come out of that is that he and I, who are, hopefully, I don't know him at all. I don't know who he is. I know nothing about him. So I'm just assuming this is a law-abiding person who's got friends and family and a job and, you know, who's got a decent life, you know, who's not a criminal, who's not robbing people and beating people over the head and, you know, stealing cars and shit like that. And even still, if he was somebody doing things to to survive, to take care of his family because he had to do what he had to do. I know people like that too, who are good people, but who are in situations where they have to do things that are maybe illegal. I've known people like that my whole life. Doesn't make them bad people. Sometimes it makes them heroes, superheroes in their communities, because sometimes they are oppressed people who have never had any opportunities, who have had 500 pounds of weight on their backs before they even got started. So there's that too, and I digress. But I'm assuming this guy's just a good guy, who's got these opinions and who actually cares about people. He cares. He said the words. He goes, there's no empathy, there's no compassion. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. It's really hard for me to see what's happening in Gaza, and I'm somebody who doesn't ignore it. I watch every video that I see. Now, I'm not on social media anymore. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram, but I find it on YouTube. And and also I have friends who, we share information with one another. So I see a lot. So anyway, I'm glad that I didn't act out with this guy, because I don't want to be disconnected from him or anybody like that. I want to, like I said in the last video, I want to be kind. I want people to go, you know what, that dude, he disagrees with me, but he was kind, he was cool. He was straight up, and he didn't sugarcoat anything, but he wasn't an asshole. He wasn't unreasonable. He wasn't fucked up, he was just okay. I totally disagree with Rock, but I can't be mad at him, really. You could be disappointed in me. You could be whatever you want if I disagree with you, but no more are people going to say about me that I was an asshole, or I was a jerk, or I was immature, or I was, filled with ego and overly aggressive for no apparent reason, just because I was young, I was insecure. I don't want to be that person, ever. I mean, I've always been a very sensitive person. I've always been an empath, for sure. But I've also been the kind of person who had no tolerance. If I thought something was wrong in terms of social justice, if somebody was racist or misogynist or anti-Semitic or homophobic or xenophobic or whatever, it was just 100 or 0. That's it. I had no in between. I had no tolerance, and you would know how I felt. But I know that life is not like that. And, in fact, one of my mentors, one of the people in my life who I respect more than anybody else on this earth, his name's Tahaka Aleem. He's like a legend. He was in the music business. He also was a bodyguard for Jimi Hendrix. He had a twin brother named Tunde. I was very close with those guys. They were my producers, as a matter of fact, for a while. Tahaka once said to me, you have to allow for the errors of the era. And I learned so much from that one comment. I grew 10 years into a better person just from him saying that. This is a guy who was he's a very proud black man in America, one of the most intelligent people I've ever known. So educated, and yet knows the street better than anybody. This dude is the real deal. He's elevated to a point where, Malcolm X elevated. And, I just learned a lot from him. And I realized it's not just errors of the era, but it's errors of your culture, of your surroundings, of the people, of where you live. If you live in Nebraska, which is a completely red state, you're not going to feel like somebody from New York City like me. You're not around that. You're not being taught that from a young child. You're not being taught that in school. If you've never been around anybody but the people who look like you, for the most part, for your whole life, you're not going to feel comfortable like somebody who lives in LA or New York or Chicago or Detroit or something like that. And I get that now. And I also get that the only way that we can all elevate our souls is to communicate with one another and learn from one another. And I need to listen to his point of view and understand why he's saying the things that he's saying. And hopefully he's going to do the same for me and listen to me and understand where I come from and what I'm about and what I believe in and why. And so obviously me and this guy are not going to know each other. He might even live in a different country for all I know. I have no idea. But it's not like we're sitting down at lunch together. And it doesn't really matter, because if we can have these short exchanges on YouTube, if my channel can be a place where something like that happens, that's an honor for me. I feel like that makes my life one that is well lived, because I want to understand people. You know, I'm good friends with this couple, William and Valerie Bell. And their son was murdered by New York City police officers in 2006, Sean Bell. A lot of you might have heard of him. He was shot at 50 times by the police. He and his friends were unarmed. They were coming out of his bachelor party, and Sean was murdered. And I just have to tell you that Mr. and Mrs. Bell are two of the kindest, nicest, most generous-spirited people that I've ever known in my life. And I know this because I know them personally, and I've been around them a lot, because I wrote a play that was based on the death of their son, and they came to my play. Somebody else connected me with them. A friend of mine connected me with them, and I wound up at the Sean Bell Center with them talking about everything, and I got to perform, and ever since then they've been so kind to me. And I realized that they're so, I'm going to use the word again, elevated in their spirit, in their hearts, because they could be two of the most angry people on earth, but they're not. And I'm sure they're damaged for life. They're hurt forever. You're never going to recover from the death of your son. An injustice like that too. He was at his bachelor party. He was about to get married. And you know, all the stories I've heard about Sean, I feel like I know him. He was like so beloved in his neighborhood in Jamaica, Queens. He was a baseball player. He had just studied to be an electrician. He had all this stuff in front of him. And his life was snuffed out, and yet his parents are just so loving and beautiful and bright lights. And Mrs. Bell is in contact with all these other mothers who lost children to gun violence. And Mr. Bell is just this funny guy who's so embracing of me, both of them. Like they pour so much love into me and so much support. And I just learned a lot from them, because I was like, I want to be like them, you know, because I'm a white man. You know, they have plenty of reason to not like me. You know, to a black couple from Queens, New York, whose son was murdered by the very people who were sworn to protect him. And her son didn't even do anything wrong. And that was, at the time, Sean Bell was one of the first names, you know, Freddie Gray, Michael Brown, all the names. And Sean was one of the first ones. And so they have a lot of reason to be angry, and angry at people who look like me, and they're not. They're just not. They're so fair, they're so open, they're so amazing. And I want to be like that. So I learned a lot today. I hope maybe you learned a little bit about lights. I'm thinking of putting a course together. Actually a few people have recommended that to me, and I never really thought much about it, because I know I'm not going to put together a very involved course that's like basically a movie or a documentary level film, but I think there might be a way for me to do it where it's not so time consuming for me, because I'm working on a film right now. But I'm thinking about it. I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do it, but I'm thinking about it. Just something that encompasses how I get my sound together, my lights, how I set everything up. It might be helpful to people who are not filmmakers, especially, who just want to do YouTube and, you know, raise their level a little bit, make it look a little bit better and sound a little bit better, and, you know, make it more aesthetically pleasing for people and more fun for them, and more of an experience where they're growing and learning and getting better at the craft that they're partaking of. I mean, if you're doing it, you might as well learn how to do it well, you know, and get the most out of your own ability, and let people know who you are better than just, you know, throwing it up there and it doesn't look good and it doesn't sound good, so people are not really hearing your message. They're not really getting it. So anyway, thank you to the guy. I'm not calling his name because I don't want to do that, but thank you for that, and thank you to everybody for leaving me messages, even those who annoy the shit out of me, because it's teaching me how to be a better person. I will say this, don't get it twisted though. When somebody is fucked up, when somebody's hateful, when somebody is just feeling a certain kind of way and it has everything to do with them and not anybody else, it's just like they're just bitter, angry for whatever their reasons are, I do have sympathy for that person and compassion, but I know the difference between somebody who is looking at the world in a just and fair way and somebody who's just mad. I got no time for that, but I'm still not going to be disrespectful of that person. But I know it clearly. You know, my bullshit meter is so sensitive. Like, you can't bullshit me. I see things so clearly. Like I said, I am an empath. Like, whatever energy you put out, trust me, it gets into the middle of my chest. And I know when somebody's coming from a good place. And the only thing I can control is me and my response. But that doesn't mean I don't know. So I'm not saying everything is kumbaya. And I'm not saying that every once in a while a proverbial punch in the face is a good thing. And I don't mean that physically. I'm not trying to do that. Unless you attack me physically, I'll never be in that situation, ever. But as a metaphor, sometimes it's good to push back, and sometimes it's good to stand your ground, and sometimes it's good to not compromise. Some things are not debatable. And people even disagree about that kind of stuff. But for me, there are certain things that are not debatable, and I'm not going to back down from those things. When I feel like anybody is being oppressed, any individual, when somebody else is trying to impose what they think other people should do on them, I think you know what I'm saying. So anyway, thank you to that guy. Thank you all. Get your lights together. Get your camera together. Pick a good focal length. Pick a good aperture to try to make the frame look the way you want it to look. You know, create your depth of field. Get foreground and background, all that kind of stuff. And let's be better people every day. And I'll say it again. I say it all the time. Here's to a better world for all of us. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please consider being a part of my Patreon. That would be awesome. And that's it for today.